What's up, everyone? It's Nick and Drew just here today. Ethan may be joining us here in a little bit. Corey is off here today. Coming at you here with just a chill day. We're gonna talk some past Big Ten. We're gonna talk some the goats of the Big Ten as well. So we're just gonna have a little conversation here. Drew, Ethan did send us something that was awesome in our group chat. The Chat GPT said the best Big Ten football teams of all time were the 2002 Ohio State national champions, the 1940 Minnesota team, 97 Michigan, 2014 Ohio State, and 94 Penn State. What was your when you saw that? What was your initial reaction?
Um, my initial reaction was, wow, Minnesota hasn't been good since World War II.
Facts, facts. I
Um,
was like, it's been that long for Minnesota. Okay.
yeah. And I'm actually looking at the 1940 Minnesota team right now. They were
Yeah.
ranked number two by ChatGPT. And um, I mean, meh. Uh,
Meh.
meh, 8-0.
Woo!
Let's
Hey, that was
see.
good enough. Hey, people were bitching Ohio State didn't deserve to play for a title at 8-0. If
Yeah.
1940, that's what you got.
Hey, I don't know how many teams were in the league, but they beat let's see. They beat number 15 Ohio State 13-7. They beat number 8 Northwestern 13-12, and they beat number 3 Michigan 7-6. So, uh yeah. I it's just such an old brand of football. I don't think it belongs on the list, unfortunately.
No?
Yeah, no. Um 97 Michigan, yeah, that's the national title team. O
Shared
two, O
national
two,
title.
yeah, okay.
Shared.
Fair, yeah. Um, yeah, I think O2 Ohio State's probably the most memorable Big Ten team for most people. Um, yeah, I don't really
94
have any
94 Penn
issues.
State was a great team. Um yeah, you're right though. Like 2002 Ohio State for like a lot of people in the Midwest, that was just a memorable season for them. Um, I mean, they literally scratch and clawed their way to an undefeated season that
Oh
year,
yeah.
and then scratch and clawed their way in the national title to eventually win it on what some people call a controversial call at the end on Chris Gamble. Some people call it controversial. Um, but I mean, when I was looking at it, there's some teams that I feel like obviously these are national title teams, right? And I
Hmm.
think these are all the most outside of Ohio State's titles in like the 40s and 60s, and some of Michigan. Like you say, okay, they're national titles, so you have to consider them, right? But I feel
Hmm.
like there was a couple teams that were left out that were not national champions that were probably 6, 7 here. You know what I mean? If you don't put them in the
Oh
top
yeah.
five. And one team comes to mind would be the 2006 Buckeyes.
Okay.
Troy Smith, Heisman year, Ted Ginn Jr., Laurinaitis, all of those guys. And then to follow it up, I feel like another team that was forgotten on here, even though, and I love holding this against this program every chance I get, but that 2007 Michigan team, even though they lost to App State on the blocked field goal and all that,
Hmm.
that team was dominant on both sides of the ball. They had one loss, they had one blemish on that record, and then they lost to Ohio State that year. But if they didn't lose, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know that
Yeah.
2007 Michigan team with like Mike Hart at running back.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like they deserve to be in this conversation too, and that's
Yeah.
coming from a Buckeye.
uh, I think you're talking about the '06 team. The '06 team went 11-2. The '07 team went 9-4. But those six team was basically the '07 team.
Yeah, one of those. What was the team that lost to Appalachian State? Because that's the
The
team I'm talking about.
the '07 team.
They went
They
9-4.
yeah, they actually
Really?
yeah, after the App State loss, the next week they played Oregon. They hosted Oregon and got beat 39-7. Oh my goodness. I don't remember that one.
Yeah, that's I don't remember that.
Dennis Dixon, Oregon. So that makes sense.
Okay.
Dennis Dixon, Jonathan Stewart.
Jesus. Well, then they beat Notre
Yeah.
Dame 38 to nothing, beat Penn State, ran it all the way, and then they lost to so they lost by 4 to Wisconsin in Camp Randall, and
Did
then they
have a
lost to
nice
Ohio State and Michigan in
yeah.
Ann
Did
Arbor.
have a nice bowl win over Florida
Florida
though.
though,
That's a good
over
one.
number 9 Florida, yeah, that year.
Yeah.
Citrus
Michigan's
Bowl.
had quite a few teams.
That's just I don't. That's so crazy. I do not. I for some reason like in my head that year they like ran the table until they faced Ohio State. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, I
They
forgot they got
they definitely
worked
could.
by Oregon.
They had a squad back then.
They did. Um, who else do you think could have been on here, man?
Um,
I mean, those were two that came to mind, and I look like an idiot because they went 9-4. But geez,
I was thinking, see, we got 94 Penn State. I like that
yeah,
team a lot. I also really like the '05 Penn State team. One loss. Michael Robinson at quarterback, Tony Hunt running back. The defense was sick. Tamba Holly, Paul Posluszny, Dan Connor, just dudes.
finished number 3 overall.
Yeah. One loss, two
To
point
Michigan.
loss at Michigan. Beat Florida State in the Orange Bowl.
They beat. Oh, they did not. Oh yeah, they did. They beat Ohio State 17-10 that year at home.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? That 2005 Penn State team, you're right.
Very good.
If they did not, yeah, because that was the BCS era, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if they didn't, so you want to believe if they didn't have that one loss to Michigan there, they probably would have played for a national title. Don't you think?
Uh, yeah, because who was the national title in '05 or '06? That's Ohio State.
No, this is two, so this would have been the
This
January of '06, you're right. But the
so
season of
that's
2005,
USC and
that was USC
Texas. Yeah,
Texas, so maybe not.
yeah. Never mind.
Never mind. That would have been that USC Texas memorable, like iconic Rose Bowl.
Oh yeah,
Of all the Rose
definitely.
Bowls I've seen, that is like the one that sticks out the most.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's probably like one of the most famous games of the past 30, 40 years. I mean, I'm watching it right now. I'm watching Vince Young extend the ball as he runs in.
Just he goes and then just takes that right there to the corner of the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
That was so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You know what clip I saw the other night though? On like most memorable college football plays was the sequence of the Fiesta Bowl, the Oklahoma Boise State Fiesta Bowl of
Hell
the
yeah.
hook and ladder for the touchdown, and then the 2-point conversion with the Statue of Liberty.
That's right.
And he runs right in, and as soon as he's in, he knows it. He looks over, you can see him like peripherals to see the refs, touchdown, and then he just launches that ball straight into the stands. That was flippin' incredible to watch.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I that game is absolutely one of my favorites of all time. It's historic in college football, dude. The hook and ladder was executed so perfectly on that last play in the fourth quarter.
Oh, if he
Like I've
wasn't, if
never seen it done so well
oh
since
no,
or before.
never. If he was like, if the timing, 1 second off,
Perfect.
1 second off, and that play does not happen.
No.
Like,
They I wonder how many times they ran that play in practice because they had it down pat. Or it just worked out perfect that one time.
either that, yeah, it either had to work out perfect at one time, or they practiced that going into bowl prep. They
Mm-hmm.
practice that play and the Statue of Liberty. Hey, we may need these in our back pocket, so we're gonna practice them.
Yeah. 13
Um,
and 0.
that Boise State team, was that Kellen
Yeah.
Moore?
Jared Zambransky.
Ski. Okay, so that was before.
Yep. And then
But
Ian
Ian Johnson,
yeah, the running
never
back.
forget that name.
Wow, dude.
He
Let's
freaking ran right over to his girlfriend and proposed to her right after winning the Fiesta Bowl. Damn, man,
iconic.
that game.
Uh I just found Ian Johnson's numbers for that season.
Go hit me.
This dude, 12 games, 277 carries, 1,713 yards, a 6.2 average, 25 tutties. That's an absolutely phenomenal season.
That's like if you were at Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, any big name school, you're in the Heisman talk. Or
Yeah.
probably winning the Heisman if you have that many, if
Oh,
that's your stat
oh,
line.
absolutely. If his
Cause
name was Mike Hart and he was at Michigan, he'd be Heisman top five.
cause what was Mark Ingram's stats the year he won the Heisman? That's what cause he won the
I don't know.
Heisman 2009, so that would have been roughly that same year, right?
This is oh 06. Oh
Okay.
06. Well, that was Troy. Who was oh 07?
'07 would have been um because the Heisman curse hit him too. Jamarcus Russell.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, because he played because that was LSU's national title year. Wasn't he the
Okay.
Heisman?
I, no, no, no. Because LSU only has two Heisman winners. I'm looking right now in
Tim
Sports
Tebow.
Reference.
Tebow
Oh,
won his first.
the Lord himself.
Yeah, that was Tebow's year.
I don't know. Yeah, but
So if
you
I'm
brought
not,
up a good
go ahead.
Mark Ingram. I was going to say Mark Ingram's stats. I'm sure he didn't have 25 touchdowns. He might add 1,700 yards, but not 25 tutties.
No. And Tim Tebow won it that year because he had 32 touchdowns and had like 25 rushing, I think. He was like the first quarterback to do it.
Yeah, fair.
But I don't think Mark Ingram had. I'm going to look up his stats from 2009 because I definitely don't think he had 25 touchdowns here. Let's take a look. 2009 Heisman season, he had 17 rushing touchdowns for 1,600 yards, 1,658, and had 3 receiving touchdowns. So he could only combine for 20
Eh,
and had
good
less
good year.
yards. good
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 year.
year. I
Good
I mean
year.
Heisman worthy, obviously, right? Because he won it. But like, if Ian Johnson would have been playing at like a big name Power Five school with that stat line, Drew, he probably would have won the Heisman that year.
Yeah, he definitely would have been invited to New
New
York.
York, at least. They probably still would have given it to Tim Tebow though.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing that Ethan sent us, and I wish he would have been here, but that he sent us, Drew, was the all-time football. Like there was like a big bracket put out of like all the best teams in college football history. It turned
So
out LSU, the 2019 LSU team, beat the 01 Hurricanes.
this is just since 2000.
Just since 2000,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
Just since 2000. The best team since 2000.
yeah. Um, yeah, I don't overly disagree with that. I mean, that LSU team was amazing. That 01 Miami team was amazing too, though. My biggest gripe from this bracket that he sent us, and I put this in the group chat, is the 2006 Florida team made it to the Final Four. I think that's crazy. That's absurd. That's not even one of Urban's three best teams. Like
Absolutely.
they're probably the third best Florida team, if that. But like, let's see here. They have '06 Florida beating 2014 Alabama. Okay. 2016 Alabama. No way. 2000 Miami. No way. 2015 Clemson. Maybe. 2019 Clemson. No way.
No.
Like,
No.
um,
2019 Clemson was really good.
yeah.
Was really good.
Yes, they were excellent.
They were really, really
And
good.
let's see.
There
Oh
was
six Florida. I mean, '06 Florida was Chris Leak, who went 23 touchdowns, 13 interceptions on a 63% completion. Deshaun Winnett running back, like Percy Harvin. Uh, I just don't understand why this team's ranked so highly.
I don't either. Um One other thing that I didn't understand either was how they put the 2010 Stanford team over the Ohio 06 Buckeyes in the first round. I don't understand
Oh,
that. I was looking at that and I was like,
wow.
I don't get that play. Um, Considering the Ohio State only lost one game that year.
True.
You know what I like if you're comparing those teams, I mean, I don't they lost one game that was 40 days after they played their last game, so whatever. Um
Yeah,
but I
and all I can say about that is Andrew Luck. Um,
right. Andrew Luck and McCaffrey maybe?
Not even
No,
Stephen
McCaffrey.
Taylor.
Yeah, Steven Taylor, so
Um,
cuz McCaffrey was after Andrew Luck.
yeah, Richard Sherman was on that team.
He was on that LSU or that Stanford team.
Yeah, but like
Yeah,
outside of those guys, there's no real. Zach Ertz was there.
but see, like, I don't even think,
Um, I
but I
think
don't
it's really
think,
just Andrew Luck.
yeah, but like, I don't think like Richard Sherman against Ted Ginn Jr. would have worked well
Ooh, that'd
because
be a
of
nice
Ted.
matchup.
It would be, but Ted Ginn's speed and what we used him
Yeah.
for would have at least been a mismatch against Sherman because like if you put Richard Sherman against like Brian Hartline that year
Mm-hmm.
or one of the other receivers
Robisky,
like Robisky or
Anthony
something,
Gonzo.
Gonzo, like more route runners, he would have been more effective against them.
Mm-hmm.
But when you take Ted Ginn and you just go, hey Ted, let's see that All American state,
Track speed.
national track speed, like
Yeah.
collegiate, national winning track speed
Yeah. Just don't hurt yourself on the first play.
of the game.
Yeah, please and thank you.
Thank God, you're right. Oh,
Also, this '06 Ohio State defense,
hi-
bro,
highly underrated.
bro, Laurinaitis, Marcus Freeman, Malcolm Jenkins, Vernon Golston, Quinn Pitcock, Ross Homan. Jeez, dude, Larry Grant, Curtis Terry. I could just keep going
Was
and
it
going.
Moss on that team?
Moss.
No, Santonio Holmes was. He was a receiver. I guarantee you he was because he was on that. Because he was on that. He had to be because he was on the Pittsburgh team who won the Super Bowl.
Ugh, gross. Yeah.
Right. But I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm
He.
wrong. Santonio Holmes was on that team.
Let's see, here we go. Actually, negative. He graduated in '05.
Okay, so I was a year
So
off.
yeah, the '06 team.
I
I
get
mean,
those
the
years
'06
mixed up
team.
because they were just
Yeah, they run together.
those just
I
ran
mean,
together.
Ted Ginn, Anthony Gonzo, Hartline, and
Trubisky,
Robisky,
that was your
Roy
yeah.
Hall, Ray Small. The running backs, I loved Antonio Pittman.
Pittman was a freaking
And
monster.
then they had both the Wells brothers, Beanie and Maurice.
Maurice, yep.
Wow. Fucking Justin
Beanie.
Zwick, a little backup QB.
Dude, we were just Ethan and I were talking about him on our way up to the Tribe game,
Oh yeah,
Friday night, and we were like, man, that kid was supposed to be the second coming of like Peyton Manning.
yeah, dude.
Like he
His
was
hype
like
was
built,
unreal.
dude. Like for those of you guys listening who don't know, Justin Zwick won the Division I state football championship in Ohio as a freshman at Orville High School. He's then was recruited allegedly all rumored was recruited and had a very nice payout or whatever deal for him and his family to then move him to Massillon Washington High School and Massillon to play for the Massillon Tigers so that way they could return to their national power and
Yeah.
win a state title, right? Never happened. They did not win a state championship with Justin Zwick, but he was one hell of a quarterback. And I will say personally, I saw him play twice in high school, both from the sidelines. And there's a reason that guy went to Ohio State, was recruited by Jim Tressel. Didn't
Mhm.
obviously pan out, but that kid was supposed to be like the second coming. And
Yeah.
it's just like crazy what his football career ended up being. Like the fact that like the year after he gets recruited, they bring in Troy Smith, Ted Ginn Jr., Jamarcus O'Neal, all from Glenville. Who Jamarcus, by the way, or yeah,
Jamario.
Jamario O'Neal, not sorry, Jamarcus. Jamarcus is my friend, his
I went to
younger
school with
brother.
Jamarcus.
Yeah, we went to school with Jamarcus. Jamario though played at Mansfield Senior against Justin Zwick, and then transferred to Cleveland Glenville, where he played with Troy and Teddy again.
Yeah.
Just a little background for you guys, high school Ohio
Nice.
background for you guys with those guys. But that team was loaded. The only thing outside of like some of these like Ohio State matchups that I don't think like obviously I think the one interesting one and a game that I would love to see that they put on here, Drew, was the 2014 Buckeyes. Okay, so like JT Barrett, Bosa, Ryan
Yeah.
Shazier, all those guys, Mike Thomas, Zeke, versus the '05 Texas team.
Oh, geez.
That matchup, I would have loved to see that one.
Yeah, that would have been amazing.
That was a
Oh,
matchup that
that's
I was like, I zoomed in and I was like, am I seeing that right? Like, I know they have Texas winning it, which is, I mean, to me, coin flip of a game. You know what I mean? It's just like I'm here to watch football at this point and some great football being played. But that game, when I was going through the list, I was like, that one, that matchup, I would have loved to see.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I would probably lean Texas just because of the quarterback position,
Oh, 100%.
but the running backs are kind of even. Ezekiel Elliott versus Jamal Charles.
Even.
Yeah.
I'd give the edge to Zeke, though. I would.
Yeah, that's fair. Charles only had 878 on the ground, but that's because Vince Young ran for 1,000.
Well, I mean,
Whereas Zeke ran for 1878. Jeez. You want to talk about a great season.
you want to
He had
talk about it
a 6.9 average,
and
18
didn't win the
tutties.
Heisman.
Wow. Didn't get a vote, I don't think.
Nope. Wasn't even in the conversation.
Brutal.
Um,
But understandable why he was taken number 4th
for
in the draft that
draft.
year.
No joke.
Yeah.
Um, Another matchup that I saw in here that I thought would have been really good. Um, was no, that no was the sorry. Was the 2010 Oregon team versus the 2000 Miami Hurricanes, just because of the offensive differences and style differences that you would have seen in that game.
Oh, for sure.
Um, but the only real gripe that I had when I was looking at this list, man, was LSU beating the 01 Hurricanes. And I'm just gonna say this. And yes, we have not seen what Joe Burrow's career, Jamar Chase, Jefferson's, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and a lot of those guys' careers pan out yet, right? They're still in
Mm-hmm.
their NFL careers. But that 01 Hurricane, and I put this and I told you guys in the group chat, that 01 Hurricane team had Hall of Famers on both sides of the ball.
Oh, absolutely.
And that defense, and if I'm not mistaken, that was Sean Taylor. Ray Rice may have graduated the year beforehand, if I'm not mistaken. But that 01 Hurricanes team was honestly the best college football team I probably have ever seen. That to not win. No, because, yeah, they won the national title and then they lost it the next year.
Yeah. Back-to-back undefeated
Yeah,
seasons. Uh, yeah, that obviously that would be like the greatest football game ever. Um,
probably.
yeah, dude, you just both teams' offenses are amazing. Uh, Burrow versus Ken Dorsey. Ken Dorsey was an awesome college quarterback.
Ken Dorsey was
Oh my gosh.
he.
These sorry.
Go ahead.
I was my the 01 Miami, their top 4 running backs. Clinton Portis,
Mhm.
Willis McGahee,
Mhm.
Frank Gore,
Yep.
and then Najee Davenport.
Yep.
All 4 of them long careers in the NFL.
One of them is a
Amazing.
Hall of Famer who played what, like 20 plus years. Frank
Gore,
Gore.
yeah. I don't know what Portis might be a Hall of Famer. I don't really know, but
But Frank Gore, didn't he just retire, Drew?
yeah,
Like, if I'm not mistaken, within the past like 2 years, like our entire like basically childhood through the middle of our adult lives were all Frank Gore in the NFL.
yeah. It's kind of astounding how long he lasted, and like
Produced.
yard, yeah, and he ranks high on the NFL's rush yards. Like he's a legit running back, and he's just like a tank.
Kellen, I'm a fucking soldier. Winslow was on
Oh,
that team. I'm
he's a bad man
a
right there,
fucking
dude.
soldier.
Andre
Mm.
Johnson,
Andre Johnson.
an absolute stud.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and then the defense. I mean, geez, Louise.
Sean Taylor,
The
Ray
secondary
Rice,
alone. Ed Reed, Sean
Sean
Taylor,
Taylor. Yeah.
Philip Buchanan was a longtime cornerback in the NFL. And Antrell Roll, big name. The headhunter himself, Jonathan Vilma. If you pay him, he will kill a quarterback.
Facts.
Vince Wilfork, a nasty D lineman. Man, dude, this team's amazing. But
That's
then
all,
let's go to the
but
29.
but
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was
Go to
gonna
the
go
2019. Go to the 2019.
2019
So we
LSU
know. So we know
defense.
Burrow.
Okay,
Oh,
let's go
defense.
offense.
Offense. So we know Burrow, Clyde Edward-Helaire,
Yeah,
Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase.
yeah. Um, yeah. So
Who was their
Terrace
tight end?
Terrace Marshall Jr., who's a third wide receiver. He plays
Okay.
for the Panthers now. Thaddeus Moss was the tight end. He's
Yes, he
also
was
in the
really good.
NFL.
He was amazing.
Think he plays for the Bills.
Yeah.
Um, Jeez. The running backs behind Edwards Hilaire, Tyrion Davis Price, who now plays for the Niners, John
Yep.
Emery Jr., who just got drafted, and Leonard Fournette. Maybe not Leonard Fournette.
No,
Is that his
Leonard Fournette
brother?
was definitely not there.
Oh, he must have a brother then. Leonard Fournette. Hmm.
Huh.
Don't know.
I was gonna say
But
because Leonard Fournette was drafted way before that
yeah,
season.
as I was saying, I was like, wasn't he playing for Tampa Bay at that time?
Yeah.
Um, on
Who?
the defense, the defensive side, it's kind of too early to tell these NFL careers,
Right.
but there's a lot of promising NFL careers on the defensive side. Jacob Phillips, who's going to be a starting linebacker for the Browns this year. Patrick Queen, who's an absolute monster for the Ravens.
Yeah.
Grant Delpit, Browns starting safety.
Yep.
Clavon Chaisson, starting D lineman. Neil
Yep.
Farrell, Derek Stingley Jr.,
Okay.
who was a top 5 pick
Pick.
last
Yeah, it
year.
was. I mean,
Um, there's some other
I just,
names.
I just look at it though, and it's just like that's my only thing is like the only position, in my opinion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, okay? But in my opinion, the only position I think the 2019 LSU has over the '01 Hurricanes is the quarterback position.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And I think, and that's just because we know what Ken Dorsey was. He was basically
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady, game manager, never panned out in the NFL like Brady did.
Yeah,
Burrow's a gamer.
Burrow is a franchise quarterback.
Burrow's of the franchise
He took a absolutely terrible franchise in the Cincinnati Bengals to the
and turned him
Super Bowl.
around.
Yeah,
I
with a
mean,
dude that was on that team with him, Jamar.
right. Which, what did I always say, Drew, growing up? I always said, it may not be a bad idea to give one of these rookie quarterbacks one of their receivers that they had. I said it. I said when we drafted Colt McCoy, I said we should have drafted Jordan Shipley. Just give him one of his targets. They have chemistry already.
Yeah,
And everybody was like, no, you got to take the best. Okay, well, we saw what Joe Burrow does with his one of his number one targets from college. These two didn't even miss a beat.
yeah,
I,
yeah.
you
I
know,
agree.
that's just
Chemistry is very important, especially between a quarterback and his receivers. Like timing, a quarterback and his receivers to get that timing right takes a lot of hours.
yes, it does.
It's very important.
And you see a lot of quarterbacks like the quarterback greats, when they go to like new teams, like when they went from college to like the number ones, the ones who pan out and do well are the ones who reach out to their new wide receivers and say, "Hey, what are you doing this summer? What are you doing this April? What are you doing this
Yeah,
May? What are you doing before and after camps?
yeah,
Because we need to get reps in." And those ones and the great ones understand that. Like we know, like Tom Brady worked out with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin the entire summer, was just throwing them balls.
yeah.
Getting used to their releases.
Yeah. For like, there is no off season, and
No,
especially if you're a player, there's no off season. But especially if you're a quarterback, then being a quarterback in the NFL is a 365-day a year job. Like, there's no days off. You got to keep working, and that's what the great ones do, right?
wish somebody would have
And
told Baker that.
it's Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson just flamed out because he didn't put in the work. Um,
There's a
yeah.
point there's a point that you get to, though, don't get me wrong. You're absolutely right. It's 365 when you're an NFL quarterback. It has to be if you want to be great. Um, but I feel like obviously there comes a point in your career, like when you're Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, you've seen everything. You've seen
Hmm.
literally anything that the defense is ever going to throw at you. So you already know what it takes to get there. Um, but you could see, like, even this year, you could see when Tom Brady was throwing the ball, he didn't have that zip on it anymore. Now, I mean, he's 40 something years old, so that's going to happen, but like, he was missing Wednesday practices. He wasn't going through, you know what I mean? Like, he had like 2 days off of practice that was written into his contract for this year or something.
Yeah.
And you saw how that affected the team.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And
True.
he's one of the and he's arguably the GOAT of all quarterbacks. And you saw when even though GOAT doesn't put in the work, it's the team suffers.
Yeah. And yeah, I agree. And like he like obviously these older guys, him, Rogers, like they can call their own shots because they are who they are. So yeah, and they've been doing it for so long, they can take days off here and there,
Right.
but uh but that's because they haven't taken days off in 15, 20 years because
Uh,
they've been working.
Oh
But
yeah.
like all these youngsters, like no days off.
Oh,
But
Baker,
I get
you
it for
need to
the
be
older
throwing in
ones.
the off season with your throwing coach.
Yeah, big season coming up for Baker.
You Zach Wilson, you got to be putting in work in the off season. You need to be lifting, staying in shape, throwing with your receivers. Um, wait, Zach is the Jets backup now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you shouldn't be effing your friends' moms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In the off season, you should be putting in work, actual work.
Hmm.
Um, that, and I think that's what like a lot of this younger generation doesn't get. They saw later in their lives, like once a social media boom hit, they saw was in the off season. Oh, maybe Tom Brady's doing this, Tom Brady's doing that. Oh, once I get to the NFL, I can start doing that stuff, right? No, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Philip Rivers, Drew Brees, the greats that we grew up with, they did that stuff in the offseason because for the past 10, 15 years that you never saw, you know, February to the start of the season, they were working out.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is like killing a lot of these kids' careers. Not only that, I think a lot of them are leaving college before they're actually ready to, you know?
Yeah. I would agree. I recently heard who was I listening to? I was listening to an NBA podcast. I think it was Bill Simmons. He was talking about how uh the league, like there's no, I don't know how to say this. The league has changed so much. Like we used to have like dudes in the league who were like constant workers, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Kobe,
yeah.
uh, KG,
MJ, KG,
AI,
yeah.
Mello, all these dudes who were just constantly in the gym working. And then nowadays, like, not that it's bad or anything, but like,
You don't see it.
yeah, the generation nowadays is more worried about what's going on social media, Twitch, playing video games. Um,
I,
they're more worried about like the
okay.
what it
Let me
looks
sum
like
this
to
up
be a
for you.
superstar.
Yeah, let me sum this up for you though,
Yeah.
because exactly what you're saying, I just watched a video that Phil Jackson was talking about. Okay,
Okay.
speaking about the NBA, he goes, he goes, I'm gonna tell you this, why those Bulls teams and those like '90s teams and like those early 2000 teams would beat all of these teams today. He goes, one, all those guys were polished in their skills when they came to the league. they rarely had stuff that they needed to really work on, and if they did, they had the work ethic to do it, to work on it and get it polished, right? Today, all you see now is these owners, GMs, and these people look at these young kids and say, just come here and use your talent. Just use your talent. Just use your talent, right? Where back in the old days it was, you're talented as hell, but if you don't work hard, you ain't never gonna win.
I got you.
And
More
that's
like,
like, and
it's like he's saying, like, put the puzzle pieces together.
exactly, you have all the talent, but can you defend like Michael did? Can you, or Kobe? Can you defend like these guys did? Do you
Do you
have that?
know? Do you know your proper role within the team?
Not only that, but he's talking like MJ had all the talent in the world, right? And then it came a point when he started getting beat up by the Pistons and stuff, when they started doing that, where he was like, I can't rely on my talent. I also have to learn this physicality of the game, right? So
Hmm.
he took his talent and added physicality to it. So now he was really unstoppable. He was like, ooh, I put this puzzle piece together, like Phil Jackson saying, right? Like, I linked that physical part to my talent. Now I'm unstoppable. Because he was fundamentally sound on defense. He knew the skills necessarily, and he possessed the skills necessarily on defense. He knew offensive skill. He had the offensive talent. You know what I'm saying? But like,
Hmm.
these kids nowadays, they don't want to put in that work because they're coming into the league at 18, 19 years old. And all
Yeah,
they're told is, you're talented. Just go out there and use your talent.
you're an amazing shooter. Go shoot.
Go shoot.
Okay.
Why do
Yeah,
you
I
need to
get.
play defense? You're all I need you to do is shoot.
So Phil's talked about back in the day, players would be more well-rounded.
Kind of,
Uh,
if you will, when they came into the league, yeah.
Gosh. Whereas today, you draft someone and you say, "Hey, you're a shooter. Go stand on the wing and shoot."
Yep.
Don't. Well, that
Or not,
person should learn to play defense and drive and pass and
and do
play
all
the
of the play
play the rest of
basketball.
the game.
Right, and basically be something other than a spot up shooter.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that pays off later in your career if you're already a spot up shooter like Ray Allen, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry. All these guys are going to play for years, barring any major injuries, right? Like we saw Ray Allen do, but like, they don't. What do you see? And you can even like translate this almost into the football game too. Is quarterbacks aren't as polished as they used to be coming out of college. You're seeing a lot stay 3 years, start one, sit behind a guy for 2 years, start 1 year, leave. You're not seeing you're seeing a lot of these young guys, like even Zach Wilson, like, oh, I'm gonna be a number one, a top five draft pick. Great. But should you stay that fourth year in college or fifth year and polish your skills so that way you are successful when you get to the NFL?
Yeah.
You know,
And yeah, and that staying that extra year could be beneficial. It could not be beneficial. You could get injured, or
prime ex-
maybe the coaching staff isn't as good as it should be. And so why would I stay this extra year with this coaching staff when I could go to the NFL and get a
and,
professional
and
coaching
that's
staff?
and that's a
So,
very fair trade-off. So like, and
mhm.
obviously there's certain situations that work better for others, but like my always prime example when I look at it is the best recent example, Mitchell Trubisky. He started 13 games in college, went to the NFL, and was poop.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, he
Urban,
should have stayed.
when Dwayne Haskins left, Urban said, I advised him and I told him what I told all my quarterbacks that I've ever coached. If you want to be successful in the NFL, you need reps, and your reps come here. But you obviously have to make the best decision for yourself. But if you're asking me, stay and get reps in.
Yeah, I'd rather have a quarterback take reps in college and get beat up than take reps in the NFL and get beat up because that'll completely destroy your confidence and kill your future.
How many times have we seen that happen even with guys who stayed
Exactly.
4 or 5 years in college, like
That's
Colt
true.
McCoy got beat up by with the Browns' terrible offensive line. I mean, given we didn't do anything to help him, but his
Hmm.
confidence was shot. Deshaun Kaiser gone.
Oh wow. Yeah. Uh
I mean,
yeah.
and I mean, we could list every single Browns quarterback,
There's too many.
too many of them, but like, I mean, look, Jamarcus Russell got beat up in the NFL, and probably some psychological issues along with that probably is why he didn't pan out.
Yeah.
I mean, how many quarterbacks, Drew, have we seen in our just think of like from when we were in high school till now that we were like, oh, this guy's gonna be around for a while, and he's not here anymore.
A lot. I can't even think of any. So many. Uh it's the hardest position in sports, I would say.
And another prime example of getting beaten up, Andrew Luck. I'm
Mm,
gonna say what it is. He got beat up in Indy,
yeah.
and I mean, he was a 4 year college quarterback for Jim Harbaugh down there in Stanford, played phenomenally, didn't get beat up, but once he got to the NFL, got beat up, and he was like, dude, my body hurts every single day I wake up.
Yeah. Uh, it's it's tough sport.
It is.
It's a brutal sport.
And and I don't think all these young kids realize that Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison, not Junior, the original, your great Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, Randy Moss, Dante Culpepper. Yes, Dante Culpepper. Remember the name. Um,
Central Florida.
Flutie, like Elway, all of these guys. Like you look back at like all the greats. Reggie Wayne. Those guys got beat up, but one thing that kept them in the league was their off-season work ethic
Hmm.
and in-season work ethic is what kept those guys in the league and off the injury list.
Yeah. And I think it's especially important nowadays because I don't know why, but there's more and more injuries every year. Like
I feel like it's the
you
turf.
I think it's the turf. I think it's the way that they're taking care of these guys. Like there's got to be some sort of problem with the conditioning or nutrition of today's athletes because like injuries are drastically more now than they ever have been.
Or so
And I do think the turf is part of it.
I don't disagree with anything you said. I'm just gonna play devil's advocate with that statement real quick.
Mhm.
The or part of it, the devil's advocate part is, or are we more conscious of more injuries now than we were back
Okay.
before? You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like where
We're diagnosing them.
we're diagnosing some
Um,
injuries and saying, "Oh, hey," like cuz
yeah.
like back in the 90s, "Oh, my hamstring's tight." You know, get out there and
Hmm.
run.
Stretch.
Stretch, loosen it up, like you'll be fine. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like now that
Yeah, that's a
sore
good point.
hamstring keeps Christian McCaffrey out for 6 weeks because
Yeah.
he's not ready to play. Like, dude, come on, get the fuck out there.
Yeah. That's a good point. I yeah, I think the diagnosis of injuries has definitely
Oh,
become more thorough, which
thorough,
is a good thing.
which is a good thing for the athletes. But I do
Yeah.
think I don't disagree with anything you said, like the nutrition, the conditioning, and all that, the turf, all of that is playing to it as well as the with the increase that injuries we've seen is because obviously they're being reported more and diagnosed, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
before we get out of here, Drew, um, I know we were talking pre-show, about this here, just bullshitting. Um, in the grand scheme of things of college football, when you look at like, and I'm talking going all the way back to present day, right? Out of all the historic programs like your Alabama, Georgia's, Ohio State, Michigan, UNC. Don't people forget UNC back in those days was a powerhouse in college football. My uncle actually played for UNC and won a Sugar Bowl with them back in World War II.
Whoa.
Joe Romano hung up
Oh,
at
that's sick.
yeah. My cousin actually has the Sugar Bowl ring, which is flipping awesome. But
Very cool.
yeah, so when you look at those, like your USC's historic, your Oklahomas, your Texases, right, of your college football world, um, where would you rank some of the Big Tens? Like I would say our historic programs in the Big Ten are Ohio State, Penn State, and Ohio and Michigan. In no particular order. I'm just saying like
Yeah.
those are your three historically programs that no matter what era you've played in, they are
Blue Blue
national.
Bloods.
Yeah. No,
College.
I would, like the Blue
Well,
Bloods. To me,
depends
that
what
means
you're
you're like you're cream, not your cream of the crop. Like to me,
like.
Blue Blood means like you're thick of the field type of guy, right? Like you're like guys who are always in the mix, but more in
Hmm.
the middle of the field. I always like to call
Okay.
these the golden teams. Your
Okay.
golden teams.
Golden tier.
Yeah, your golden tier. Like your
Okay.
golden chip. Like you're going to the casino, they're giving you that golden like $250,000 chip.
I got you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, as far as Big Ten goes,
Where would you
uh
rank them?
I think
Not
one's a
not like
hell
not like yeah, like if you could say like would you
not
rank them in like the top 5, top 10?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say Michigan and Ohio State are both top five, top seven programs of all time, I would say. Um, who's above who? We could debate that for hours.
Absolutely.
They're both amazing programs. Get
Hmm.
over it. And then I would say Penn State would be third or fourth. They would kind of be in like the second, maybe third tier, depending on how big your tiers are. And I would put Nebraska right next to them.
Okay.
Um, I mean, Nebraska still doesn't feel like a Big Ten team. Like I still consider them a Big 12 team,
Does, doesn't it?
but technically they're Big Ten, so we can claim their history. So that gives
Even though
us
their history is Big 12 history, but we'll claim it. We'll
we'll
claim
claim it.
it.
We'll claim it. Makes our conference look better.
Yes.
Those four teams right there, those four programs
I
are
think I think if you look at those four programs, I think if you asked any true, I'm talking like if you asked like Herbie, your
mhm,
Greenbergs, your Cowards, Joel
your his,
Klatz of
your,
college football, I think those four programs would appear in their top tens. I
I
think
think
all
that's
four
fair
would
to
be in a
say.
top 10. I now where they fall in the top 10, like you said, Drew, we could debate all that for hours because you could.
Hours. Yeah.
How do you look back at like Oklahoma's history, Texas, Alabama's, all these other programs that
Yeah.
like have historically just like great teams, great runs with titles,
Hmm.
and it's like how do you rank them? I mean, it, honestly, I think, and it kills me to say this as a big for on the Big Ten on a Big Ten podcast as a Buckeye. But it kills me to say that I think the number one overall program, when you would look at the entire history of their program, I think the number one overall program, no matter what, would be Alabama. They have wins.
Yeah.
They have obviously national championships, and they've won in basically every single era of college football.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'd say Bama's probably one, two. I mean, I would probably put Oklahoma up there as
Yeah,
well as Notre Dame. I think Notre
Notre
Dame
Dame.
deserves a mention.
Um,
But as far as Big Ten goes,
as far as the Big
I think
Ten,
we're sitting pretty. Well, I think we're sitting pretty with four top tier programs.
Oh, in the top 10, absolutely. I mean, if you take up
Who
40% of the top 10, I think that's pretty good for your conference. Now,
absolutely.
I think I think when you rank them, I think Alabama would be one, and then I think your two historically, just because what they both bring, I think it's a tie. I think it's really a tie at number two, in my opinion, and that goes to Michigan and Ohio State, whichever one you want to put 1A, 1B, whatever. I don't think it matters because I
Hmm.
think what that game means in November, historically, what it currently means, what both programs have done without their history, I think they are tied at number two.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
And then three, I would go Oklahoma. And then four, I would probably say Notre Dame. And then five, maybe Penn State.
Yeah, maybe
Um,
USC, maybe.
actually, I would go five USC, six Penn State, and then um, maybe seven. I would probably have looking at it. Texas would be a good pick there.
Hmm.
Um, Nebraska would also be a good selection there. Um, Florida State. Are we gonna sleep on
Hmm.
Florida State? I mean, I could put Florida State at seven, and I don't think that would be a bad pick. So I mean, when you're getting down there, I think it's just who you prefer. In some of
Yeah.
those spots. I don't know. What would your top five look like?
Um, top five would I'd say Bama at one right now. Um, um, yeah, two
It's hard.
threes, 2-3. I'll say Ohio State, Michigan,
E
Michigan,
flip
Ohio State.
Michigan doesn't matter. Like I said, that's
I
just
don't know,
two
dude.
A two B. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like it's just
yeah, I yeah, and I think you nailed the top five. Oklahoma has to be in the top five, and I would put Notre Dame as my number five. There's just too much history there.
the only thing that concerns me about Notre Dame, and a lot of Irish fans are probably gonna flip, is I don't think that they have the national titles to compete with the top.
Okay,
I
how
mean,
many?
when was their last national championship? Let's just go from there. I mean, because at least you could say at least Michigan's won one in the past 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, not in the past 100. I mean, the past 30.
88 was the last national title
Okay,
for
so
Notre
they
Dame.
so they broke up the Penn State Georgia the U run
Thir-
somewhere in
thir-
there, right?
13 national titles.
Yeah, but they haven't won one in the modern era, right?
Yeah.
Because their last title would have been voted upon, right?
I, yeah, I think
I guess
so.
same thing with Michigan. They haven't won one in the modern era then, because their last one was voted upon
Mm-hmm. And shared.
and shared. But like when you look at Notre Dame though, like I just I just haven't seen even recently like they haven't won many bowl games. In the big bowl games that they have played in, like the your quote unquote New Year's Six bowls now, ever since 2000, I feel like they've lost them all. I mean, I know they played Ohio State twice in a Fiesta Bowl and they lost that one. I
Mm-hmm.
know they got killed, absolutely killed, murdered, demasculated by freaking Alabama
Mm-hmm.
in a national title game.
Yeah.
Then they lose in the playoff to Alabama again?
Uh,
Because I know they lost another playoff game that they absolutely got smashed in. But historically, I mean, if you're going obviously previous, most recent, not in the past 20, 30 years, Notre Dame is
yeah.
historically a great program. You're not wrong. What does
Yeah.
your
And
brother call them?
Notre Lame, Notre Shame,
Yeah, no, but he calls their fans something.
the fake Catholics.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
guess recently, I mean Notre Dame's just kind of average, above average, I would say. But traditionally, they're blue blood.
yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
I was gonna ask who do you have in the like second tier of Big Ten teams?
like
Like we
historic,
have our top four. Who would be the next two or three?
like historic.
Yeah.
Oh, I definitely
Uh,
would put Wisconsin in that category.
okay.
I would definitely put Wisconsin there. Um, Mainly because I don't know too much about Wisconsin's deep history, but I know
Mm-hmm.
what they've accomplished recently. I could put them in that
Yeah.
category.
Recent history is pretty
Um,
impressive.
yeah, the recent very history is impressive. I could. It's hard, but you had some good Indiana and Purdue teams back in like the 80s and 70s that were
Mm-hmm.
really good. And I mean, Purdue did win a Rose Bowl. Um, with Drew Brees. So I mean, just thinking about that, Iowa, I could put Iowa up there historically. I think Iowa's historically a good program
Yeah, I was thinking Iowa.
as a tier two. Not definitely. I'm not comparing them to Ohio State or Michigan, Penn State, or
No.
Nebraska historically, but they're in
Yeah.
that second tier.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty drastic drop off from those
Absolutely.
four.
Oh, absolutely. Another one, and people, and you could call me crazy, and I'd like Indiana Purdue. I could say belong there, but I definitely probably wouldn't put them there in that tier two. But
Mm-hmm.
a team that I think that belongs there would be the Fighting Illini.
Okay.
Um, like I'm just thinking back at like big games that I've seen them play in, and like even going back to childhood, and they were always right there.
Yeah.
They were always right there, and then they had a big drop off after 2007, which is crazy that you beat the number one team in the country on their home turf, and then you drop, then your program just takes a big hit. Doesn't make sense to me. I want to know, like, I would really like to dive into like that 2007 to 2008 transition for Illinois football, and I think that would be a good segment for us to do because, like,
That'd be fun.
yeah, because like they beat the number one team in the country going into like the last few weeks of the season,
Mm-hmm.
and then they haven't done anything until like last year. You know?
Yeah. The next season they go 5-7.
Yeah, you
What?
right, and you were
What?
like, and you were what, like 9-3 the season beforehand.
Yeah.
So, um, that
Interesting.
yeah, very interesting, isn't it? So like you look back at like some of those Illinois teams. I mean, hell, they took they took what is considered the best team in the Big Ten to overtime. The 2002 Buckeyes, their program did. So
Mhm.
I think I'd put an asterisk next to Illinois there in my
Okay.
opinion, but I would have them there with an asterisk there. Um, but I think when you're really looking at it, I think there are two, like I said, that asterisk, possibly three teams that deserve to be in that tier two, and those only two teams would be Wisconsin and Iowa with your asterisk with Illinois. When I really look at it,
Yeah. That's fair. That's
I
that's
would
who I would have too. I have Iowa
Wisconsin, right?
and then Wisconsin and then probably Illinois
I
and
would
then
love to
probably
put.
Sparty.
Ooh,
But Sparty's more kind of like second half of the century good.
see, and
Like
I would put
they're kind
Sparty down there with like that tier three historic.
okay.
I'd put them like tier
Hey,
three
that's
down there
fair.
with like Northwestern and everybody else. Like, so I only go off at three tiers. You're either like
Oh, okay.
what's the difference between tier three and four at this point? You know what I'm saying? Or five and six.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So like that's how I would do it. Just because, look, the only playoff game that they ever played in, they got absolutely smashed in. They've won the Big Ten one time that I can actually remember in the past 20. It's going back to 2000. They've won the Big Ten one time. And I don't even think they shared it
Yeah.
before we had a conference championship game because Ohio State won in 2002. Michigan won it, I think, in 2003 or something like that. Or Iowa or somebody random won. No, yeah, somebody random won it then. And then you
Uh,
had, but then like Ohio State won it like 05, 06, 07, 08, 9, 10.
10 was split, Sparty
See
and
it.
Whiskey.
10 was because Ohio State had to vacate.
Oh, okay.
Ohio
Oh,
State
okay.
vacated.
Yeah, there's a
That
little
was Jim
asterisk here.
Tressel. Yep, that was Jim Tressel's year. So without Ohio State vacating, Michigan State won one Big Ten championship.
Yeah, I guess they are kind of worse than I thought they were.
We just like the thing is we know the games that they've played, right? And like the tough matchups, but they really haven't like and I guess you could say the same thing about Illinois, so that's why I put the asterisk next to them. But like I always remember like at least Illinois competing in the Big Ten for the Big Ten championship at least, or them being a team talked about to win the Big Ten. I don't ever remember outside of 2015 where anybody was like, "Yo, watch out for Michigan State this year."
Yeah.
Am I
Mm.
wrong?
I would say the 2010s was a pretty successful decade for Sparty. Probably their most successful decade. Um,
But then after 2015, they didn't do anything. So they had a good half of the decade.
yeah, 10-3 and 17, and then 11-2 and 21, which is definitely a fluke because that was the Mel Tucker season.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, definitely that was a fluke.
yeah.
So I would love to consider
Yeah, no.
Northwestern historically good, but they're not.
No, 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 no. I would I we haven't even brought them up. I would put Minnesota
Above Northwestern in any ranking.
above many of these teams, and
Yeah.
that's almost completely based on the first half of the last century.
Century. Right.
Because like back then, Minnesota was a
They were
force to
tough.
be
Dude, they were
reckoned with.
tough.
And
Minnesota,
then
like people don't
it,
realize Minnesota used to keep Ohio State and Michigan from possibly winning a title or going to the Rose Bowl back in that era.
yeah, in a 7-year stretch, 1934 to 1941, 7 years, Minnesota has 5 national titles. That's nuts.
Jeez.
They have 18 conference championships. They have more conference titles than Iowa, than Wisconsin, than Michigan State, than Illinois.
So I'm gonna revise Minnesota asterisks instead of Illinois in that tier three.
I think that's fair. The last 20 years of Minnesota football do not reflect the history of
History.
Minnesota
Minnesota football.
football.
Right. Hey, they're getting back there though.
Yeah, dude.
I
Yeah.
really think if Flex stays there, if he stays at Minnesota and nobody tries to poach him to like a bigger school, I think in a couple years we're gonna be looking at a hell of a schedule that you may have to play in the Big Ten when you may have to play Minnesota, USC, UCLA, Penn State, Ohio State,
Yeah, dude.
Michigan. You know what I mean? Like Patty Fitz
Nebraska,
every 4 years, Nebraska, Wisconsin.
Nebraska, Iowa.
I right.
I
Like
mean, yeah, it seems like Wisconsin is back on the come up. It seems like Minnesota's on the come up. Nebraska looks like they might be on the come up.
I out of all the teams outside of being, an Ohio State fan, obviously, right? Out of all
Mm.
the teams in the Big Ten, who are you looking forward to watching? Like looking forward to this season to see what they actually do?
Um, man, there's a lot. Like, I'm really interested to see if Penn State can be as good as we all think they can be. Um, my biggest question mark is Minnesota. The team looks good from everything I've read. Fleck thinks this is his best team yet, which is pretty crazy. But I don't.
I'm
I
real
can't. I love Minnesota, but I can't trust Minnesota. I've been saying it for years. Can't trust Minnesota.
I'm real excited to see what how Luke Fickle eh, and his Wisconsin Badgers look
Yeah.
for his first like real head coaching job in the Big Ten.
Hmm.
And then I'm real excited to see what Matt Rule does with that Nebraska offense.
Yeah, me too.
Um,
I
Outside of that though, I'm real excited. I can't, like you said, I want to see if Penn State can be as good as we think they can be,
mhm,
or is this just going to be another James Franklin?
blunder.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then one last thing ex- I'm excited to watch to see is which one of I believe that Rutgers, Indiana, and Northwestern, one of these three teams is going to have an absolutely atrocious season. I'm interested to see which one of these three teams is the
which
worst.
one? Western.
Northwestern, Rutgers, or Indiana. Those are
Ooh,
my three worst teams. They're all pretty bad.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go right now. I'm gonna say Rutgers wins one game.
Ooh,
Even though I don't think I picked to do that in our
yeah.
actual thing, I'm just gonna take a hot take right here. Go
Okay.
against my predictions for those records. Rutgers wins one game, Indiana wins two, and and Northwestern goes defeated.
Ofer.
Puts a donut,
Whoa, dude.
and Patty Fitz
Gets canned.
gets gets
Oh.
canned. But he finds a job in the
Oh.
offseason
Oh.
with some defenses, working as a defensive analysis guy.
Oh yeah. I think he would be like one of the most uh wanted coordinators in America.
Dude, there's an interesting thing that I thought of, and it was just like a random thought I had one like earlier this week. What if Jeff Halfley has another bad, like horrible season at Boston College? Okay?
Hmm.
Your Ryan Day, your defense, and Jim Knowles gives up a couple, ends the season badly again. If you're Ryan Day, Drew, do you pick up the phone after that loss in November and give Jeff Halfley a call and say, "Hey, come back.
Interesting.
Let's just do it." Why, like we see what Brett Venables did. It obviously it's not working. Just come back. Do you pick up the phone and try to convince Jeff Halfley to come back to Ohio State? And the only reason I'm asking is because 2019 was his defense.
Yeah.
You were After
Wow.
all the controversy that happened within that game, you were one Chris Olave cut away from going to the national championship. Think about that. You were literally after the touchdown, the fumble return gets returned, the controversial targeting, non hands to the face on Chase Young, all of like this controversy that happened throughout that game. You were
Hmm.
one Chris Olave cut away from making the national championship. Now, I guess you could then, on the flip side, say, well, with Jim Knowles, you were one Noah Ruggles field goal from going through the uprights from playing from actually probably winning a national title because you
Yeah.
probably would have beaten TCU.
Yeah.
Um,
Not as bad as Georgia did, but
Not as bad as Georgia did, but it would have been bad. Um, so that's my question. Like, would you, or would you stick it out with Jim Knowles,
um
just knowing that like
I
you had the number?
I like Jim Knowles. I think he's pretty fucking solid. I liked him a lot at uh OK State. Looking at last year's numbers, I mean, Ohio State's defense or gave up 21 a game, 322 yards per game, which isn't terrible. But looking at this 19 defense, this was coached by Halfley, you said
Yep.
13.9 points per game. So that's a
Hmm.
touchdown difference, as well as 260 yards. So 60-yard difference. That's incredible. Uh, but no,
And
I
and
wouldn't
and I just
I
want to
wouldn't give
point
up
out,
on Knowles.
I'm not
Yeah.
giving up on them. I'm just saying that
If this is a bad season, it
like if it
depends.
yeah, it depends. Like I'm just saying, like I'm throwing out that scenario. Like Halfley wins 3 or 4 games at Boston College. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like your defense has a blunder in the last 2 games of the season, like you did last year. You're like, hey, we thought we fixed it, we didn't. Do you? I guess my question is do you go back to to what you know works and a guy who you can trust, who you can trust, who did it before you before, or do you stick with Jim Knowles and say, hey, I have confidence that we're gonna figure this thing out. It's only year 2, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
It's a hard one.
yeah, I think I personally, if I was Day, I think I would, depending on how bad, if it's like a terrible season, then we got to cut you, but probably keep ride with him. I like to give coaches 3 years.
Me too.
Um,
I would say you give him
and
3.
yeah, and
Um,
also I lightweight don't think Jeff Halfley's going to get fired this year.
no,
I actually I just did my studying on the ACC yesterday, and Boston College actually looks better than
they
uh,
look better than they did last year.
yeah,
Absolutely.
they look pretty solid actually.
Um, so if I was Ryan Day, I would have a serious talk with Jim Knowles. And my serious
Yeah.
talk with him would be, are you willing to switch up your defense? And by that I mean, are you willing to go to a 4-3? 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebacker sets. Are you willing to do that?
Uh, does he run a 4-2-5?
Yes, it's a safety driven defense.
Yeah.
So my thing is, and Ethan and I were talking to this on our way up. Love love the safety driven defenses, right? It's awesome.
Yeah, I love 4-2-5.
When was the last championship defense in college football a 4-2-5?
I don't know.
You can't name one because they're all 4-3s. LSU, Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. All your last national champions have all had 4-3 defenses. Now, don't get me wrong, you have to mix in the 4-2-5 because when they spread the field out, you have to bring in your nickel corners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And stuff like that. You have to run those sets. But like when all I'm saying is I know, and as much as we've watched Big Ten football, in the Big Ten, if you want to be successful, you have to have 4 down, 3 back on defense. You have to put 7 in the box at all times. And if you want to know something,
Yeah.
if you had 7 in the box, Donovan Edwards probably doesn't rip off 2 75-yard runs back to back.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I mean, if honestly, if Knowles doesn't perform with this roster, then there's no excuse. Like this roster is
It's
crazy,
insane.
especially the linebacking core.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how do you not like? I guess my thing is you have to put the best players on the field, right?
Yeah.
So if your best 11 don't consist of 5 corners, why are you putting 5 corners or 5 defensive backs on the field? If your
Yeah.
best 11 include 3 of your best 3 linebackers, that's the set you need to be running most of the time.
Yeah. As a DC, you want to run your scheme. Like obviously I want
Hmm.
to run my system, but you got to kind of look at the talent you have and say, okay, well, maybe I don't have that fifth DB where I have a third and a fourth linebacker. So maybe I should just run a lot more 4-3 sets. You can still run 4-2-5s. Like obviously you're going to have to against teams that spread the ball. Like
Produce.
Maryland,
Maryland.
you're going to run 4-2-5 against them.
Right.
But you're also going to want to load the box against Michigan,
Penn
against
State.
Wisconsin. These teams
Right.
that have
You have
like
to.
there's so many stud running backs in the Big Ten this year.
You
Like
just have to. You have to load the box against them.
yeah,
And if
you have to
and if
stop the
you're
run.
loading the box with your safeties, now you're leaving yourself open deep.
Yeah.
So,
And if you're bringing up your safeties, they better be some big boys who like physicality.
well, and one thing, and I've said this multiple times, and I'll never understand this. So Jim Knowles has like that jack, quote unquote, jack position, where it's like a hybrid linebacker who rushes the quarterback but also drops into coverage or whatever, right? Who's like a hybrid
Mm-hmm.
linebacker corner slash defensive end, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
My question is you said you don't have that on the team. You may not have that on the defensive side of the ball, Jim and Ryan, but you have that fucker on your team. And that fucker wears number freaking 8 or something now. He wore 16 and he's from Lexington, Ohio. His name's Kate Stover.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now. The it was one game. He had one bowl season prep for this Rose Bowl. He was third in the team in tackles. The kid was all over the place. When he dropped into coverage against a Utah tight end, they did not look his way once.
Really?
I wonder why. Because he's also capable of playing tight end at an
Yeah.
elite level, clearly, and is probably going to be one of the top tight ends drafted next
Yeah.
season and next year's draft, right?
Yeah.
Why the fuck aren't you putting this dude on defense?
That's fair. Yeah. He's got great size, 6'4", 255. I know he can move well.
He has speed
He's
clearly because he can play tight end.
he's a farm boy. He loves contact. He loves physicality.
Dude, when he got to play linebacker, he did an interview and they said, "What are you most?" I'm excited to hit somebody. I love hitting people. Like,
Hell
dude,
yeah.
put this dude on your defense. Let him go run wild. Like, let him hit people.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you got quite a
Like,
few backup tight ends. You can afford to
dog,
maybe
G. Scott Jr. You have another one
G.
who's in
Scott
there
Jr.
who's
Yeah.
amazing. Like I've met G. Scott like 4 times, and he's a nice guy, and this kid is massive. He is a great tight end. It's like we have tight ends who can produce. Put him on the
Hmm.
field. Let Cade be who he is on the defensive end of the ball, and just let him be a fucking animal.
Yeah. Go put him next to Eichenberg.
Put him in the middle. Fuck. Or put him on
Steel
one of the
Chambers.
ends. Yeah, put him next to Steele and Tommy and you'll see how slow Tommy Eichenberg actually is. For fuck's sakes. God, it feels like I'm watching Tough Borland and what's his ass? Pete Warner.
Damn.
Oh fuck. Sorry,
Oh, you're
but
good.
that's how I feel watching Tommy. He's so slow.
He's just slow.
It's just so slow coast to coast.
That's going to cost him some money in the NFL draft.
Oh, oh, it will. But I mean, it's just like, and don't get me wrong, like, I mean, obviously I'm saying he's slow in comparison to other linebackers. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I'm not talking like this guy is like like molasses in an igloo, moving slower than freaking shit on, frozen shit in an iceberg. Like, you know
There's a
what I'm saying?
reason. There's a reason he had 120 tackles last year.
Right. I mean, he's a great
The
linebacker, don't
dude
get me
finds the
wrong.
ball.
Right. But like, he has great pursuit, he takes great angles, but like, when you're a linebacker in the NFL, you got to be able to go out there and cover a tight end.
Yeah.
Could you imagine Travis Kelsey covering, or could you imagine Eichenberg covering Travis Kelsey?
Probably not.
Right.
Kelsey probably burn him.
But burn him for one touch, for like 3 touches for like 225 yards. 3 touchdowns. 3 catches, 75 yards each, 3 touchdowns. That's what his stat line would look like.
Nice game.
Phenomenal, but like Tommy, that's like that, and that's all I'm saying. Like with Tommy Eichenberg, but like you have that jack position, fucking use him. You're just using him on offense. Use him on defense where he
Yeah.
needs to be, because he was a linebacker. That's what you recruited him to fucking
Yeah.
be.
True.
And then Ryan was like, "Oh no, we need help in our tight end room. Hey, Cade, you're just like a tight end. How about you want to work on tight end? You played it in high school a little bit." It's like, no, dude. If you would have let this dude be a linebacker, you probably would not even know who Tommy Eichenberg was. I'm being honest. Like he would be starting if you. Let me ask you a question. If you had between Cade Stover and Tommy Eichenberg on linebacker, who would you want?
I mean, I can't choose against a second team All American in Tommy Eichenberg. I mean, he was second team All American.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But Cade, Stover, I know he's a
He's just a
dog.
workhorse. He doesn't
Yeah,
care. He's out there to play football.
yeah. It seems like he's got pretty good mentality.
Well, and Ryan said it the best. He talked to Cade, and it was Cade's decision to go to tight end. So like, what do I mean? Like, I'm just bitching as like, fan guy. Saying out here like, what the fuck are you guys doing? You have that guy, put him on the field. You know what I'm saying? But like,
That's fair.
it was Cade's obvious decision to go to tight end. He's obviously going to be an NFL player at the position, so
Yeah,
it's
and
all worked out for him.
maybe some of these high recruit young linebackers can step up. I see
God,
some pretty good
hopefully.
numbers here. Number
God,
10,
hopefully.
number 11, number 22 in the
And
country.
then on the flip side of it, you have Michigan, who's not missing a beat right now. I mean, they're ranked
Yeah,
in they're top 3 in recruiting going into 2024.
yeah, they're killing it.
They're freaking picking guys left and right. It seems like Harbaugh can't do anything to derail Michigan other than him shooting himself in the foot that he does all off season.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to the NFL. No, I'm coming back. Let me get to that doctor to get those bullets surgically removed real quick.
It's I yeah, this Michigan team looks great, but for some reason in my gut, I have this feeling that they're just not going to live up to the hype this year. I don't know why, but I
Do
think
you
they're going
think
to
this
lose a
is the
couple.
best team? Like, looking back, going back these past few years, do you think this is the best Wolverine team Harbaugh has had?
Um,
There's only one other
I
team that I think that we could compare, and that was that Gary on, or Deshaun Gary year, 2018, I think it was.
okay. I don't know. I might lean
But
towards last year's team. Just because this year's team is basically last year's team, but they lose DJ Turner, who's in the
yep,
NFL, Mozzie Smith, who's in the
Mozzie,
NFL, Mike
yeah,
Morris, who's in the NFL,
yep,
Ronnie Bell, who's in the NFL.
yep, yeah. They lose. They lost a lot of key guys.
Yeah, special teams is going to be an issue because they lose both the punter and the kicker.
Yeah,
But
I
uh,
mean, I was just asking because like that's what like as I like to call them, the talking heads on ESPN
yeah,
like to say, like, this is their, all these sports talking
this is the
heads
best team.
this is their best team. I mean,
Yeah,
give it, as long as they don't know shit. You and I don't know shit, right? The only people who know shit are the people who've obviously been around college football and been with know the intricacies of how college football works, right? And those are your
yeah,
coaches
yeah.
and former players. So
People that
like,
are in the locker rooms every day.
exactly.
Like we don't know
We
how
don't
the
know shit.
chemistry is, how team chemistry, how team morale is. We just
Right.
take it's best guess.
Right. Or, we're just out here giving our our opinions, and it could be
Mhm.
bullshit. It could end up being facts. You never know, right? But like outside of like those people who are within like obviously the program and all that, I mean, that's just what everybody else is saying. that this is Harbaugh's best team. So I just wanted to, obviously get your thoughts because to
Yeah.
me, I agree. I thought last year's team w was way like scarier. Like for the first time, like going into 2021 as an Ohio State fan in that Michigan game, it was like, all right, let's win this one. Let's claim 10-0, like the 10 straight wins, and let's get back to Columbus, right? Um,
Mhm.
that was last year, and like 2021, kind of new. Our defense can't stop water from coming out of a bag. Couldn't stop water from entering the Titanic at this point, right?
Mhm.
So last year it felt we got a good defensive coordinator. We saw our defense perform in big game, against Notre Dame. They gave us a win at JTT. Sorry, not our defense. JT Tuilamola gave us that win against Penn State. And then you were looking, as a Buckeye, you were looking at Michigan. You're going, this is it, right? We have a defense. This is our year where we right our, we show last year was the fluke. Let's get it. And
Yeah.
then they beat us, and it was like, oh shit. Like, maybe it wasn't a fluke.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, last year's team, Michigan, was the scariest one I've seen.
Mhm. Yeah. I like I said, this year, I for some reason I think Michigan feels vulnerable this year.
Yep.
Um, but like I think Harbaugh recruits better than Day. I think Harbaugh's a better coach than Day, personally. Um, so I think that's kind of what's been going on.
I think
But
Harbaugh recruits overall better than what Ryan Day has in his tenure. And what I mean
mhm,
by that, I think Harbaugh has taken an even cut of great defensive talent and an even cut of great offensive talent.
mhm,
Where all we've seen out of Ryan Day has been offensive side of the ball. You know,
yeah,
where you're getting the top quarterbacks, the top wide receivers, their top running backs, some top offensive linemen, maybe a couple tight ends, but you're not getting that top corner that you need. You're not getting the top safety, the linebacker. You may get that defensive lineman just because of the Bosa's Chase Young,
mhm,
line that you've put out. But like to your point, Harbaugh's out recruited Ryan Day and out coached him on every single aspect of the defensive side of the ball. Outside of that 2019 season when Jeff Hafley was there, and you were really with a lot of Urban's quote unquote players, but
yeah,
Ryan was there, so he helped recruit some of those guys, I would imagine. You
yeah,
know,
and he's a good recruiter. I'm not saying he's
oh,
bad. He's
but he doesn't get like
excellent.
those like where Jim Harbaugh is getting like those 4-star corners or like
Hmm.
those corners, right? Ryan Day's not getting those guys, and I think that's where he's outperforming him is solely on the defensive side of the ball.
Okay.
Because we know, I'm looking at track records here, and like let's just look at offenses, right? Offensive wise, if Ryan Day says he doesn't want somebody on offense, I gotta trust him on that front, right? Like, if you're saying, hey, you're not going to be a good fit for us, you gotta trust him,
Hmm.
or if he likes a CJ Stroud better than a JJ McCarthy, or a Kyle McCord or over a JJ, those types of guys, yeah, I think you gotta trust him on that aspect, right? But
Yeah.
over Jim Harbaugh, right? That's what I'm saying. Like when I'm
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
comparing those two coaches, I'm going to trust Ryan Day's offensive mind over Jim Harbaugh's when
Yeah. I
looking
think
at
that's
that
fair.
talent. On the flip side, I'm trusting Jim Harbaugh's take on defensive guys more than I would ever on Ryan.
Yeah. I would agree. Michigan's defenses have been
Always
sick.
top tier. Always top tier defenses.
Yeah.
And what's really scary is if Michigan could get, like, now that Michigan got an offensive coordinator, that's what's scary. It's because now they can score points with a great defense, just like Ohio State had, where you could score a lot of points, good, and we ain't going to give up many.
Hmm.
So, anything else though? I'm done. I got I'm done with everything, all
I
the
think
bullshit that I got.
I think the perfect Big Ten team would be Ohio State offense, Michigan defense, Iowa special teams.
I like that.
That is the perfect
Perfect.
Big Ten team.
And I think your offensive coordinator is Ryan Day, and your defensive guy was probably, even though he's an offensive coach, but he like puts so much emphasis on the defensive side of the ball. Harbaugh would be like your head coach of the defense with his own coordinators, and then you would have Ryan Day as your head coach of the offense with his coordinators. And I think like if you could take those two aspects and put them together, like you said, with that third leg of the tripod being that Iowa special teams, I think you would have an unbeatable Big Ten team
Oh yeah,
nationally.
yeah, yeah. They would be sick.
Dude, that would be insane. Because Michigan's what ranked in the top 10, sorry, the top 5 in defenses, if I'm not mistaken, every year since 2017, I want to say.
I believe so. Maybe not 2020, but
Well,
that
I'd
year's a
hit fuck
wash.
the COVID year.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Jesus, you really nailed it there, Drew. Um, have a great rest of your Sunday, man. Thanks for coming on and bullshitting
Oh
this
yeah.
afternoon or this morning here with me. Hopefully the other two guys are back here with us next week. Um, we're aware of the technical issues that happened last week. So we're gonna give you guys back the Illinois Northwestern breakdowns. We're gonna come back with Illinois, or sorry, not Illinois, Purdue, Indiana as well. So we're gonna knock out Illinois in the state of Indiana in 1 week. 1 week for you guys. So we'll catch everybody next week. Drew, take it easy, brother. I'll see you soon.
All right, bro. See ya.
See ya.